The traveling sentence. If a concept is a brick, a generalization is a wall. The brick on its own is just a brick. It does not enclose. It does not hold up a roof. You have to take many bricks and arrange them, mortar them, build them into something that stands. The wall is what makes the brick useful. Let me give you the metaphor a different way. A concept on its own is a noun. A generalization is a sentence. The noun on its own does not move. The sentence travels. The sentence has a subject. It has a verb. It has an object. It does something. It claims something about the world. This chapter is about sentences, specifically the kind of sentences that survive when the unit ends. The kind of sentences that a student can carry into next year, and the year after, and the decade after that. The kind of sentences that are still useful in the supermarket aisle. We have a name for these sentences. The name is generalizations. In some schools, they are called enduring understandings. In some, they are called statements of understanding. The labels vary. The thing is the same. A full sentence that captures the destination of a unit. A full sentence that explains how the world works. If your unit was a journey, the generalization is the postcard your students should be able to send home from the other side. What a generalization actually sounds like. Let me give you a few before we start unpacking them. Conflict can be a catalyst for social and political change. That is a generalization. It connects two concepts, conflict and change. It claims a relationship between them. It is true across many specific cases. The French Revolution, the American Civil War, the Arab Spring, the independence of India, the civil rights movement, the Stonewall riots, the struggle for women's suffrage. Each of these is a specific case. The generalization is what they all have in common. Systems depend on the interaction of their parts. When one part is disrupted, the whole system is affected. That is another generalization. It connects the concepts of system and interaction and disruption. It applies to ecosystems. It applies to economies. It applies to family dynamics. It applies to the human body. It applies to a school timetable. It is a sentence that travels. Fractions represent part-whole relationships and allow precision between whole numbers. That is a mathematical generalization. It connects the concept of fraction, the concept of part-whole, and the concept of precision. A student who genuinely owns this sentence understands not just how to compute with fractions, but why fractions exist. Notice what these sentences have in common. They are full sentences, not single words. They name relationships between concepts. They are true in many places, not just in the specific topic that taught them. They have a real verb at their heart, not a vague word like is or has. That last point is the one teachers stumble on most. So we are going to spend most of this chapter on the verb. Why order matters. Before the verb, one thing to understand about order. When you plan a unit, you write the generalization first, even though the students discover it last. That sounds strange. Let me say it again. The generalization comes first in your planning. It comes last in your teaching. In your planning, you sit down and decide what understanding the unit is for. You write the sentence. You hold it. You ask yourself, is this true? Is this worth a month of school? Is this transferable? You refine it. Once it is right, every other planning decision flows from it. What examples to use? What questions to ask? What investigations to run? What evidence to gather? What assessment will tell you whether they got there? In your teaching, the sentence is the destination. You do not say it on day one. You do not put it on the board on day one. You let students walk the unit and meet it at the end. They build it themselves with your scaffolding from the patterns they have seen. If you write the sentence on day one, the rest of the unit becomes proof of a claim already made. If you let students arrive at the sentence on day 20, the rest of the unit is a real inquiry. that earned the sentence honestly. So plan first, teach last. The generalization is the North Star. North Stars are not in your hands. North Stars are at the end of the journey, the formula now to the construction of the sentence itself. There is a formula. The formula is simple. It is so simple, it sounds almost insulting, but it works. Concept A, strong verb. Concept B, maybe a third concept. Full stop. That is it. 2 or 3 concepts knitted together with a strong verb ending in a period. Let me show you with an example. Take the concepts conflict and change. Pick a strong verb, drives. Add a context that names what kind of change, social and political change. You now have conflict drives social and political change. It is a real sentence. It has a verb. It claims a relationship. You could argue against it. You could defend it. You could test it against real cases. Try again. Take the concepts pollution and biodiversity. Choose a strong verb, alters. Add another concept, ecosystem chemistry. Pollution alters ecosystem chemistry and destabilizes biodiversity. That is a stronger sentence. It says more. It claims more. It is testable. Now take the concepts adaptation and survival. Choose strong verbs. Develop, maximize. Organisms develop structural and behavioral adaptations to maximize survival within environmental constraints. That is a stronger sentence still. It is precise. It tells you what to look for. It is the kind of sentence a grade 6 biology student could spend a year unpacking and never grow bored. The pattern is always the same. Concepts woven together with a strong verb. Nothing fancy, no jargon, just a real claim about how the world works. The verbs that kill the sentence. We need to talk about the verbs that kill these sentences. There is a small family of verbs that look harmless but do tremendous damage to a generalization. These verbs say almost nothing. They imply a vague connection without committing to it. They sound serious, but they cannot be tested. They allow a teacher to feel they have written a generalization when they have actually written a fortune cookie. The verbs are these: affects, impacts, influences, is, are, have. I want you to hear these said aloud. Affects, impacts, influences, is, are, have. These are the no-no verbs. We do not use them in generalizations. They are banned in this book. Let me show you why. Take a candidate sentence. Pollution affects the environment. Is that true? Yes. Is it useful? No. It tells you almost nothing. Yes, of course, pollution affects the environment. So what? In what way? With what mechanism? With what consequence? The verb affects is a placeholder. It is the verb you write when you do not actually know what you want to say. Compare. Pollution alters ecosystem chemistry and destabilizes biodiversity. Now the verb is doing real work. It tells you what kind of effect. It tells you the mechanism. It points at evidence you could go and look for. Another, fractions are parts of a whole. Is that a generalization? Technically, it is a sentence, but the verb is. It says nothing about a relationship. It just states a category. The student gets nothing portable from that sentence. Compare. Fractions represent part-whole relationships and allow precision between whole numbers. Now the verb represents is doing work. It tells you what fractions are doing for us. It explains why fractions exist as a system of notation. A student can take that sentence and apply it to a real situation. Why do we need 3.5 kilograms instead of 3 or 4? Because fractions allow precision between whole numbers. That is what the sentence said. That is what it means. Once more, conflict influences history. Empty. Influences could mean anything. Skip it. Compare. Conflict drives social and political transformation. The kind of order that follows a conflict depends on what the opposition has organized in advance. Now we are saying something. We are claiming a specific relationship. We are even suggesting a sub-claim. The reader can argue or agree. The sentence is alive. Strong verbs to reach for. Drives, alters, requires, produces, transforms, constrains, destabilizes, mediates, shapes, triggers, determines, limits, generates, reveals, distorts, compresses, sustains, reinforces. The test. Read your sentence aloud. Does the verb do work? Can someone challenge the verb? Can you find evidence for or against it? If yes, you have a real sentence. If no, the verb is one of the no-nos. Change it. The three levels of a generalization. Lynn Erickson, the researcher whose work underpins much of this approach, named 3 levels of generalization. Once you can hear the difference, you will write better sentences forever. Level 1 is what you write before you have done the thinking. It uses one of the no-no verbs. It says something obvious. It barely earns its place. The sentence affects the environment is a level 1 sentence about pollution. The sentence the Civil War changed America is a level 1 sentence about the American Civil War. They're not wrong. They're just shallow. Level 2 is what you write after a few minutes of thinking. The verbs are better. The sentence is more specific. You have started to claim a real relationship. Civil wars cause social and economic changes. That is better than the Civil War changed America. It moves the topic up to the concept of civil war as a category. It names 2 kinds of change. It is closer. Level 3 is what you write after real wrestling. The verb is sharp. The concepts are precise. The relationship is specific. The sentence is testable. Ideological conflict within a nation drives systemic social transformation and redefines national identity. That sentence is doing real work. You can take it to the Civil War. You can take it to the partition of India. You can take it to the Rwandan civil conflict. It travels. It earns its place. Aim for level 3. Settle for nothing less. Most teachers on their first attempt land at level 1. That is normal. The discipline is to look at your level 1 sentence and not stop. Ask, what am I really trying to say? Be more precise. Replace the weak verb. Add the second concept that explains why. Cut the empty words. A useful rule, read your sentence aloud. If a clever 15-year-old could shrug at it, it is level 1. If a clever 15-year-old would argue with it, it is closer to level 3. A worked example. Slowly, I want to walk you through writing a generalization from start to finish in real time. Slow this down with me. The topic is the French Revolution. The grade is grade 8. The unit will run for 4 weeks. What is the concept underneath the topic? Run the why ladder we learned in chapter 3. Why does the French Revolution matter? Because it changed how France was governed. Why does that matter? Because it changed how Europe thought about who can rule. Why does that matter? Because the question of who can rule and how power is taken or given is one of the great questions of every society. There. The concept is power. Maybe revolution itself, maybe legitimacy. Now think about what other concepts we might pull in. What is the unit really teaching? It is teaching how revolutions happen. It is teaching that revolutions are not random. It is teaching that there are conditions under which an old order falls and a new one rises. The concepts underneath are legitimacy, opposition, trigger, and outcome. Now draft a level 1 sentence, just to have something on paper. Revolutions affect societies. That is a level 1. Verb is affects. No depth. Move on. Draft a level 2. Revolutions happen when people are angry with their government. Better. We have moved from any old society to a specific actor, the people, and a specific cause, anger. But the verb is still a placeholder. and we have not said what makes the situation tip into action. Draft a level 3. Slow down. Think about what really has to be present for a revolution to happen. There is anger, but anger alone is not enough. There has to be organization, otherwise, the anger goes nowhere. There has to be a specific event that triggers people into the street. And then, importantly, what comes after the overthrow matters more than the overthrow itself. The Arab Spring taught us this. Tunisia ended very differently from Libya. The difference was in what was built, not in what was destroyed. Now combine. Revolutions occur when an existing order loses legitimacy. Opposition gains organization, and a triggering event mobilizes mass action. Outcomes depend on what replaces the old order, not merely on what was overthrown. Look at that sentence. Read it aloud. It has 4 concepts: legitimacy, organization, trigger, replacement order. It has real verbs: loses, gains, mobilizes, depend, replaces. It has a subclaim after the semicolon about outcomes. It is testable. You can take it to any revolution in history. You can take it to today's news. You can take it 20 years into the future. It survives. That is the destination of the unit. Every lesson in the 4 weeks is now in service of helping students arrive at this sentence. Not by being told it, by building it themselves from the evidence of the French Revolution, the American Revolution, and the Arab Spring. The sentence took 20 minutes of writing. It will pay for itself for the rest of the students' lives. More examples across subjects. Let me give you a few generalizations across different subjects so you can feel the rhythm. In a primary maths unit on patterns, a pattern is a rule that repeats. When we know the rule, we can predict what comes next. The concepts are pattern, rule, prediction. The verbs are repeats and predict. Even a 5-year-old, by the end of the unit, can build something with buttons and pasta and tell their friend the rule. In a grade 7 maths unit on functions, a function is a consistent rule linking each input to exactly one output. A linear function is special. It adds a constant amount per step. So its rate never changes, and its graph is a straight line. The concepts are rule, consistency, linearity, rate of change. The verbs are linking and adding and changes. 12-year-olds can build to this through one carefully designed 40-minute provocation about a single number. In a diploma history unit on memory and history, whose stories survive depends on who controls the institutions that record them. Collective memory is not a record but a construction. The concepts are control, institution, memory, construction. The verbs are depends, controls, records, construction. This is a sentence 16-year-olds can wrestle with for an entire term and never finish thinking about. In a grade 2 literacy unit on stories. Stories begin when something a character wants is in trouble. The way the trouble ends teaches the listener something about how the world works. The concepts are story, character, want, trouble, ending, lesson. The verbs are begins, wants, ends, teaches. A 7-year-old can use that sentence to talk about every book they will ever read. In a music unit on tension and resolution, composers create emotional movement by building harmonic, melodic, or rhythmic tension and resolving or denying it. The listener's expectation is the instrument. The concepts are tension, resolution, expectation, instrument. The verbs are create, building, resolving, denying. A 12-year-old can take this sentence into every song they listen to for the rest of their lives. In a diploma economics unit on scarcity, scarcity drives the allocation of resources and shapes the human choices a society is willing to make about justice. The concepts are scarcity, allocation, choice, justice. The verbs are drives and shapes. A 17-year-old can argue with that sentence for a week and grow in the arguing. Notice the pattern. The sentences are all about relationships between abstract ideas. The verbs are doing real work. The sentences are testable. The sentences travel. When students build it themselves, I have been saying that students arrive at the generalization at the end of the unit. I want to be specific about what that looks like because it is the moment that justifies all the planning. Imagine the grade 8 revolutions unit on its final day. Students have spent 4 weeks looking at 3 cases: the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Arab Spring. They have read short dossiers on each. They have filled in a 4-column chart comparing the cases on 4 dimensions: trigger, ideology, leadership, outcome. Their teacher walks to the front of the room. She does not begin with a definition. She begins with a sentence stem. She writes on the board, a revolution happens when blank, blank, and blank. Then a second stem. The outcome of a revolution depends not on blank, but on blank. She says, in the next 20 minutes, you're going to take everything we have seen across the 3 cases and finish those 2 sentences. I do not want a list of facts. I want you to write the rule that explains revolutions, any revolution, including ones we have not studied. The students draft. They draft with partners. They argue. They strike sentences out. They sharpen. By minute 18, they are landing. Then one student reads hers aloud. The room considers it. Another adds a phrase. The teacher writes on the board. Slowly, with student voices in the room, a sentence emerges that is almost word for word the level 3 generalization the teacher planned 20 minutes of her life to write. The students do not know that the teacher already had this sentence. The students think they invented it, and in the way that matters, they did. They walked the road. They followed the evidence. They arrived at the destination. The destination was waiting for them. The teacher's job was to make sure the road was real. That is what the generalization is for. To be the place students walk towards without ever being told the destination. When they get there, the sentence is theirs. A word on honesty. I want to say something honest. Writing a good generalization is hard. The first 3 or 4 you write will be embarrassing. The verbs will be wrong. The sentences will be either too vague or too specific. You will look at the page and feel that the work is amateurish. That is the experience every teacher has, including teachers who have been writing these sentences for 20 years. Do not stop because of the embarrassment. The discipline of writing a real generalization is a writing discipline. It is the same discipline a good poet uses, or a good journalist, or a good lawyer drafting a brief. The first draft is rough. The second is better. The third is closer to what you mean. By the 5th, you have a sentence that says exactly what you wanted to say. That 5th draft is the one you build a unit around, not the first, not the second. Spend the time. The unit gets it back many times over. Something to do this week. Take the topic you have been holding in your mind since chapter 1, the topic where your students scored well but forgot quickly. Sit with it again. Run the moves from the last chapter to find the concept. Write the concept on a piece of paper. Now begin drafting a generalization. Use the formula. Concept A, strong verb. Concept B, maybe more. Test your draft against the no-no list. If the verb is affects, impacts, influences, is, are, or have, cross it out and try again. Test it for travel. Could a student use this sentence to make sense of a situation you have never shown them? If not, it is still too narrow. Test it for honesty. Is this sentence actually true? Or is it a slogan? If it is a slogan, sharpen. Aim for level 3. Settle for nothing less. When you have a sentence, write it on a card. Tape it to the inside of your planner. That is the destination. Every lesson you teach in that unit is now in service of getting your students there. You are about to plan a different kind of unit. You have your concept. You have your sentence. The only thing left is the engine that drives a unit from day one to that final sentence. The engine is made of questions, specifically three kinds of questions. We meet them next. The recap and what comes next. Here is what we have said. A generalization is a full sentence naming a relationship between concepts. It is written first in planning, discovered last in teaching. The formula is concept A, strong verb, concept B. Avoid the verbs affects, impacts, influences, is, are, have. Aim for level 3. The sentence must travel beyond the specific topic and survive in situations the student has not yet seen. Students should arrive at the sentence themselves, scaffolded by their teacher, after walking through real evidence. In the next chapter, we will look at the questions that drive an inquiry from start to finish. There are three kinds: factual questions, conceptual questions, debatable questions. Each one does a different job. Most teachers only use the first. You're about to learn the other two. We meet them next.